All right, it's 6 p.m. and in Perth, and it'll be 8 o'clock in the Eastern States. And Jamie, I'm just confirming you can give me a thumbs up. You can hear me okay? All right. Very good evening to you. Welcome to our webinar this evening, an educational webinar about investing in the Perth property market. I'm thrilled to have some really good content for you tonight and a very good co-host and other speaker who I'll introduce in a moment. So my name is Garth Davis. I am the founder and CEO of Property Powerhouse. We run educational events like this to help mum and dad investors all around the country. Tonight's run sheet, the webinar will run for a maximum of 1 hour. We'll be looking for input from yourselves, and hopefully you can see there is a Zoom bar somewhere on your screen that will allow you to go to the chat box or to put in a Q&A. So please feel free to put in some chat or some Q&A. We will be opening for questions, and we do encourage questions. So a great opportunity to get some Q&A happening. So feel free to go through there. I am going to ask Jamie to keep an eye on some of the chat and Q&A in case I miss any of that. But tonight's run sheet, I'm going to do an introduction for you on the property market, the residential property market around Australia. So we're going to start macro. Then I'm going to hand you over to lovely Jamie Horner, who you can see on screen. So Jamie, if you just want to unmute yourself and just say hello quickly.
Hi Garth, hi everyone.
So Jamie is the director and licensee at Empire Property Management, superstar operators. I have been working with Jamie in the property management space. She's been our preferred property manager in Perth for about 15 years. Her and her team run an excellent ship, and as you hear, she really knows her stuff. And when you hear her talking tonight, she's a real expert in her field. So we're very pleased to have her. Once Jamie's given us a detailed blow on what's happening in the Perth rental market, I will then go and give you some more detail from a stock, from purchasing perspective, what type of properties we should be looking at, which properties are going to perform the best in the market. So hopefully we've got some real nuggets for you before we get going. So Jamie, I'm just going to have a look in the chat box. Okay, it's just people being friendly, which is wonderful. Don't think there's anything to really go onto there. We do have one question, which we'll answer in a little while. Hi, is the market in Perth as hot as the media makes out? Is it real? So that's from an anonymous. So look, we'll get the evening rolling. So enjoy the evening, ask questions, just enjoy the information that is presented, and please feel free to ask any questions you'd like. Right, let's try and get on to that first slide if she wants to behave. So just a disclaimer that the information is general in nature. Please seek specific advice and from the relevant parties, whether it's your finance or your property management or financial planning. So just general information tonight. Let's move to our next slide. All right, just to let you know that a bit more about our business, Property Powerhouse. So Property Powerhouse are the experts in investment property. We eat, drink, sleep investment property. So we're very niche in what we do. What makes us a point of difference and different to our potential competitors or people in the industry is that we have a national footprint. So we're working with builders, developers, and property managers, finance brokers, shires, you name it, right around the country, and looking for the best opportunity around the country for a mum and dad investor. Our mission statement is by providing education like we're doing tonight, support, our long-term support, and our experience. Been in the industry now for 18 years. Property Powerhouse enables mum and dad investors to buy properties all around Australia, building up their wealth, which is very important too, enabling them to retire debt-free, which is very important on their own home, and create multiple passive rental income streams, which is what we all want. We all want that passive income stream, which is not earned through blood, sweat, and tears. So that's a little bit about what we do, Property Powerhouse. That's me in the top left-hand corner there, near the pull-up banner. I will go to the next slide. All right. So what I want to take us straight away to is the give you an update about what's happening from macro level around the. So this table in front of us is care of CoreLogic. Regular attendees of my webinars will know that I like to use CoreLogic data, as they are an independent third-party property resource. They record every transaction in the residential property space around the country, and they are independent and they're not owned by a builder or developer, or so the data is not skewed or biased. So what we can see here, and they produce this literally on the last day of every month. So this is only a few days old. This came out on the 1st. And what we can see here is, so firstly on the right-hand side gives us the median dwelling. So you may see slightly different reports come out and wonder why there's a little bit of variation. So sometimes the information is provided for homes, and there might be separate information for like apartments. So when they're talking about sort of homes, they standalone dwellings, a home that is not attached, so not a townhouse or an apartment. For the purposes of CoreLogic, this table is taking into account every sale. So whether that be a house, whether it be a townhouse, or whether it be an apartment. So on the right-hand side, you can see there's Sydney's most expensive capital city by median, which is the middle priced sale during that period, followed by Melbourne, Brisbane. There it's 749. So it gives you an idea. Because we're going to be talking on Perth tonight, you can have a look there. So Perth is one of the very cheapest capital cities, and you can see the only one behind that is Darwin on 494. So our median price of 542 makes us relatively very attractive compared to the other capital cities, and relatively very affordable. What we also like to have a look at here is having a look at what happens on month by month, what happens on a quarter, and what happens on an annual. So let's have a look at the very bottom line, which is national. And we can see around the country that properties, every type of dwelling, averaged out throughout the country, has grown in value 18% over the last 12 months. Now that is massive. We've had basically every capital city and in regional going up in value, which is very, very uncommon. And that's been a result of a number of things. One is on the back of very, very cheap money, very, very cheap interest rates, which the governments and the Reserve Bank implemented to make sure that there wasn't a glitch or a slowdown or a stall in the economy during COVID problems. And we'll be discussing interest rates in a bit, about interest rates now going to be heading more to a more normal environment. But we can see generally property has performed very well. And in fact, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to make money in property over the last 12 to 18 months. In fact, you could have probably thrown a dart at a property and you probably would have made money. Now that is a very unusual situation. And now we are moving into a completely different market where now properties are going to be doing different things, and you need to be extremely knowledgeable. And hence the name here, that we're in a 3-speed property market. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, it means that we have generally properties, cities operate normally in their own cycles. And we have 3 speeds at the moment. We have the markets that are slowing and cooling. And as we can see here with Sydney on the month, a negative growth, and a Melbourne on a negative growth, their rate of growth has been declining. So there's still some properties there that are still, going up in value and are still performing well in sale. But the market there has been red hot. You can see the annual growth 17%, but those markets are starting to slow. Why they're slowing? They're slowing because of affordability is becoming a real problem now. The interest rate talk is getting people very nervous. Banks are starting to assess loans much stricter now in anticipation of interest rates going up. So people are reading data, they're seeing the market is starting to slow. So those markets are moving into more equilibrium, what we call, so a balanced market between buyers and sellers, which is always very healthy. So we have the cooling markets, and then we have the markets that are going really, really hot at the moment. And those are particularly Brisbane and the Adelaide markets. And as you can see over the last year, absolute standout Brisbane, 29.3. So basically a 30% capital growth in 12 months. That's just outstanding. And that market is still on fire. And I know in the sense of, really going strong. I know we have attendees here tonight. I have some clients that have bought into Brisbane over the last few years and have done exceptionally well. Their rents are performing really well. They've got some excellent capital growth. So some people that got into Brisbane early enough have done very well there. You can see the Adelaide market also performing per annum 26.3%. So another outstanding performance, well above the trend line and well above the national average. So we have the markets that are cooling, that's one speed. The second, the ones that are firing along at red hot pace at the moment. And then you have the emerging market. And that is the city we're going to be talking about tonight. The properties that are in the emerging cycle, and that is Perth, and we're going to explain to you why. So at the moment, you can see Perth has performed okay under the national average. Bing, that's a buying signal. All right, 7% annual growth. So it means it's been performing okay, but it hasn't hit on the accelerator yet. It's starting to improve. You can see this last month, 1% growth, which has performed on par with Canberra. Not as strong as Brisbane or Adelaide, but definitely stronger than Sydney or Melbourne. And compared to the national average, they're performing better on a month-on-month. Quarterly, there also the growth has been okay, but you can start to see now we're starting to accelerate a little bit. So 3 speeds, the cooling markets of Sydney and Melbourne, the red hot markets at the moment of Brisbane and Adelaide, and the emerging market of Perth. Right, let's go change the screen. This is also by CoreLogic. Now this works out the gross rental yield. And I know some of you that have listened to my educational webinars understand what this number represents. So what does this number mean? Well, it actually means the rent versus the value of the property. And it generally will help you understand the cash flow of the property. And what it basically is, you multiply the rent by 52 weeks, so you get an annual rental income, and you divide it by the value of the property, and you multiply it by 100. So I always think of a very, very good rule of thumb is a 5.2% yield is if a property costs $500,000 and it rents at $500 a week. So that's a 5.2% rental yield. So kind of dollar for dollar. 500,000, 500 bucks a week rent. So, and again, these yields are across apartments and across detached housing and townhouses, etc. So what we can see from the rental yields, Darwin, very, very strong, and it traditionally is a very strong market for rents. Again, a lot of people moving there on contracts, so they don't go to buy, they go up there and they rent, and often renting furnished apartments because it's a long way for them to take their furniture for a 2 or 3 year contract. Therefore, with a furnished apartment, they can get higher yields. What I wanted to show you, and I've highlighted Perth. So Perth, again, the rental yield is strong. And what we'll hear from Jamie tonight, there's exceptional places where, and I'll show you some also where the rents are outperforming, closer to 5.5%, 6%. So again, these circles in each capital city. So there's better performing areas, suburbs, property types in the different capital cities. But you can see that Perth again is ahead of the capital cities. You can see Melbourne and Sydney. Their rental yields are low, which means the cash flow there is going to be very tight. In fact, those properties are probably cash flow negative. And the reason those yields are low is because the values outstripped, the values grew so quickly and so strongly that the rents couldn't keep up, basically. So rental yields are low there, and those are cooling markets. So you want to be careful that, yes, will there be opportunities in Melbourne and Sydney? I'm sure there are. But again, generally, most properties, the answer would be you'd want to be careful about investing there because they've had their growth, the market's cooling, and the rental yields are not strong. Right, so thank you to Mark Kruger of House and Home Loans for providing this information in front of us here. I know it's a busy screen, so I'm going to try and simplify it. That gold color, which is on the left, is variable interest rates. So interest rates have a very big bearing. It's probably your most important factor as an investor when you're holding a property regarding the cash flow. So yes, we want values to go up. Yes, we want rents to go up, but we also have to be able to afford to hold a property, especially when those of us that start building a portfolio. So maybe 1 or 2 properties, you can manage a property if if the cash flow is neutral or it's a bit negative cash flow. But once you have a portfolio of 10, 15, 20 properties, the interest rate is huge. And as you know, like on your own home, the interest rate has a very big bearing on your outgoings, and therefore the cash flow of your own home with your mortgage or an investment property. So on the orange one that's been provided by Mark, this is for investors. This is not, these tables showed are not about owner-occupier, they're about an investor. So if we, as an investor, want to go today to buy a property and our finance broker or bank says to us, and we want to go interest only, we can kind of see the yields here. Now, on the left, the first one, let's have a look at ING. So we can see 80% LVR. Maybe there's a question, God, what is an LVR? So that's your loan to value ratio. So if you borrow by putting down 20% plus your stamp duty, so you're putting in about 25% into the deal, either through equity or cash, and you're only borrowing 80 from the bank, you get a nice interest rate, 2.59. If you're going to do a 90% loan, which means you're going to only pay a 10% deposit plus the 5% settlement cost, stamp duty, and other associated costs, then your interest rate is going to be higher. And why is that, gosh? Because it's the risk. So the banks will make sure, one, that you've got good credit, so that you pay your loans and you pay your bills on time. And that's all we know with the credit reporting system now. The banks have access to all those, your credit file. So they make sure that, one, you can afford the loan, two, you're a good repayer, and number three, they also want to assess the risk. And if they're lending more, it's a more risky loan. Therefore, the interest rate is higher at a 90% LVR. So as we can see there, around about, so it's probably about 2.65, we can go and get a loan today, all right? The one below is principal and interest. So again, those rates are lower at principal and interest. And the reason they're 2.28 from Suncorp, again, because it's less risky in the eyes of the bank, because you're actually going to be paying down the loan. So in their eyes, they want to reward you with that, with a healthier and a lower interest rate. So this is why it's really important that you're talking to finance brokers all the time, because they've got access to multiple banks and they can get you the best loan at the best interest rate for your specific needs. You might say, right, let's have a look at fixed rates. So you go to your broker and you say, we believe interest, we're worried about interest rates are going to go up. We're hearing a lot about interest rates going up in June, etc. And we do believe there will be, maybe 2 or 3 interest rate hikes this year, and probably 4 interest rate hikes in this cycle. So you might want to fixed rates. So a 2-year fixed, we can see, is 2.99 and 80%, and on the left it was 2.59. So we can see it's more expensive, which means the banks are already factoring in that rates are going to be going up. So that's a 2-year fixed. Let's go into the blue, which is the 3-year fixed now. So PNN, Police and Nurses Bank, you can see 3.39. So it's about 0.5% more by fixing for 3 years. Now, what you'll see is there's a trend. So what can you see here? You can see the interest rates are going up, which means the banks know that interest rates are going up and they're factoring it in. And banks don't normally like to lose out on where they factor their interest rates. So you must know that interest rates are going up. Whether you should fix or not, or stay variable, is a discussion between yourself and your broker. But the market is moving. We know that there hadn't been much movement for a couple of years. It's sat steady. The Reserve Bank sat steady today. But we're very worried about inflation now. We've had very expensive fuel. We've had a lot of cash thrown into the economy to keep it strong during COVID. And it's time now that the interest rates will go up as the inflation starts to go up. So interest rates now will become a major factor for yourself as an investor and on your own home. And I highly recommend that you stay engaged with your finance broker. Make them your best friend, because they're the people that will be able to decide whether you can help you to see whether you've got purchasing capacity to buy a property and start building a portfolio to help you retire debt-free on your own home and create those multiple passive rental income streams. So that's information I wanted to share to you tonight on a macro level. I'm now going to I'm going to hand you over to Jamie. So I wanted to say a very warm welcome, Jamie. I've known you now for 15 years plus. I think you're a superstar. You're a multiple award winner. So maybe you could, first of all, we just want to give you a warm welcome, and maybe just tell us about your business. How long have you been in the industry yourself? And tell us about your wonderful team at Empire.
Oh, good evening. Thank you, Garth. Can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you nicely. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm just going to apologise to everyone. We are a COVID household, so me disappearing off the screen was a cough or a blow of the nose. Unfortunately, just what we're living in Perth at the moment. I have, 2003 is when we opened Empire. So we're looking at 19 years now, and I've been licensed since 97, mainly focusing on property management. So we are very well known as property managers and strata managers. We are very lucky that we do look after probably more than 3,000 owners, strata and property management wise. And I suppose we live and breathe property management. So in relation to Garth, I know you just went through a lot of stats, and I think you'll find that I'm very similar. So one of the questions I think we found on the Q&A is the property market that hot? And I think it's really key to understand why it is. So I'll get you to flick through to the next slide, if that's all right, Garth. And if anyone's not sure, that picture was Elizabeth Quay, which is one of the beautiful infrastructure pieces we have in WA at the moment. So it's really important to understand the Perth market, because I know a lot of people have had a struggle between 2015 and 2019. So for people in Perth, if you bought a property prior to 2007, you've seen excellent growth. And even though you've lost rental income, as in rental income has gone backwards over the last probably 2015 to 2019 period, you've seen great capital growth, and you've still seen growth in your rental price. For those owners that probably contracted somewhere between 2012 and maybe settled, if it was off plan, 2015, 16, 17, it's been a really tough market. They've seen what they potentially bought something at decline in price by about 10%, but they've also seen their rents go back 30%. So I sort of understand how my investors feel. Those that have probably been in the market prior to 2007, those that came in sort of between 2011 and 2015, and those that are coming in now. So 2015, 2017, so just something that we've got to understand in relation to property management and rents is that we always have a lag. So just when we're looking at population growth, the Australian Bureau of Statistics always has about a 9 to 12 month lag. It's exactly the same as rents. So because we are only able to increase a rent amount either at the midway mark, if an agency does increase them at the midway mark. If not, it's at the 12-month mark. So even though the market probably started declining in 2014, you didn't see it impact in your rents until 2015, when the tenant's lease came up. So what mainly happened in 2015 then is that rents went back, $10, $20. Then 2016, another $10, $20. And what happened by the time 2017 hit is that rents were backwards by about 30% from a peak in 2014. If you want to know how that happened, we'll show you in the next slide. But what happened in 2018 and 2019 is like anything, it's supply versus demand. People weren't buying investment properties in Perth from 2016, 17, 18 and 19. And the reason is because the rental return had gone backwards. There was not much signs of growth. So what happened is that the demand stays constant. So we need about 7,000 rental homes to be available for supply to meet demand. 7,000 is no longer accurate. But what happened is that from 2018, 2019, 2,000 properties each year became less available. Owners looked to sell, or no one was buying investment properties, which meant that when it came to those tenants looking, those 6,000 or 7,000, there was therefore only 4,000 available. Then we came down to 3,000. We then, once the time we hit about 3,000 is when the market went crazy and we were obviously going up for rents, but we had something else hit us. So the COVID Response Act, which hit in March 2020, for Perth owners, that was prime time for rental increases. And we're talking prime time of not going up $10 per week or 20, we're talking $30 a week, given supply had dropped so highly. So because the COVID Response Act hit in March, we felt like we were going to come out of it in September, so a 6-month period. Our state government extended that for another 6 months. So you had 12 months of rent not increasing in a tightening market. So March 2021 hits, we're out of the Response Act, and the rental market is at critically low supply levels. So right now, there is probably 2,300 rental properties available. And as you know, historically, we need about 7,000. So that meant that from 2020 to date, rents have increased by 18 to 19%. And I will be honest, that is a low estimate. And it's probably more attuned to the fact of looking at our investors. So Garth, I'll get you to go to the next screen and I'll probably explain a little bit more why. So what you can see there, guys, is when you look at the stats, have a look at available rentals. You can see why in 2017, your rents went backwards. It's obvious. There was literally 2 times the amount of properties available for the number of people. It's exactly the vacancy rate that Melbourne and Sydney are experiencing at the moment, and they're declining rents. So what happened then is the absorption. Our demand has actually stayed constant as opposed to last year. So let's assume we need 7,000 rental properties. You can see how we've gone from 13,000 down to 10, down to 7,400, 3,869, 2,136, and we're now at 2,365. Now, everyone's wondering why we haven't plateaued down any further. And the reason is because we are quite lucky that we have build incentives. So a lot of owners have said to me, but how about all those people that are building? The great thing about all those people that are building is it's tenants moving out of the market. So what it has done is it has at least slowed the critical amount that we were going to go to. So everyone has said to me, okay, Jamie, in relation to all these builds that are coming on, is that going to affect our rental pricing? And I can say to you, the builds that are coming on are not enough. So the builds that are coming on are allowing us to maintain a status quo of 2,365, but we no longer need 6,000 to 7,000 properties for supply to meet demand. We're at the stage at the moment where we need about 10,000 because Perth borders just opened. So I'm just going to, again, you know I love my stats, but the REWA president came out with something just yesterday, and he's pretty big on his statistics as well. And he's got that Melbourne lost 60,000 people, whilst Brisbane and Perth added 22,000 and 16,000 respectively in the year to 30th of June 2021. So we added 16,000 people during locked borders in Perth to 30 June 2021. We are estimated to again go double that. So we are estimated to have our international migrants back up again. And we are estimated to have, given our strong mining and our need for worker demand, we are estimated to probably double that. So you're going to look at this and think, well, where is 30,000 people going to live? So when you look at the numbers, we've got 2,365 available rentals. We have a vacancy rate of 0.7%. Our rents have finally gone back up to probably still a very, so people, the headlines do say people's rents have gone up ridiculously. They're going to have to move out. And I do agree. Rents have gone up 30, 40, 50, 80, $150 per week. However, we still remain extremely affordable. When you look at the medium house rent in Perth, it's still $450 and it's still $410, but it won't stay that way for the next 2 years. So Garth, I'll get you to go to the next slide if that's okay. So the headlines are true. So we do predict anywhere from 20,000 to 80,000 interstate and overseas migrants. Now, guys, it is very normal for someone when they migrate here to not buy straight away. They mainly like to rent for 6 or 12 months. But even if they were ready to get into the buying market, we only have just under 8,000 properties available for sale. And if you're wondering what a great statistic is for numbers, it's 8,000 is not great. So at the moment, most properties are getting 50 to 60 people at home open for sale. And they're also getting multiple buyers, and only the top offers are being accepted. So I know a lot of agencies, for example, if they'll get 20 to 30 expressions of interest, and they will only write up the top offers. So when you're looking at migrants fighting for only 10,000 properties, that is a combination of sale properties and rental properties. So what does it mean for us? It means that our rents will also go up at least another 20% over the next year minimum, probably up to about another 30% over the next 2 years. Garth, I'll get you to go to the next one. So guys, if we're looking at the stats here, I know a lot of my owners are looking at this plateau and wondering what's going on. FYI, apartments have always stagnated a little bit. So apartments haven't seen their price increase go up at the same rate of houses has. Apartments, however, are still on the up now as we go back. So generally, people that live in Perth, they love their houses, they love their townhouses, whereas migrants do like the apartments. That's what they're used to living in. So hence why you can see our borders have opened up and we've got that increase. However, if people are wondering why you can see that plateau in relation to housing prices is in WA, we can only put up rents generally every 6 or 12 months. So what happened is you can see we came out of the moratorium on March 2021. So obviously we were allowed to put rents up in March 2021, and then you see the big gap. For agencies that allowed 6-month rent increases, they would have also potentially had an increase at that mid-month. But what is going to happen is when we see the March and June stats for 2022, you'll see another jump, because that's also, again, when we're allowed to put rents up. So Perth's rent is not plateauing. It's just more dictated by our lease agreements. So Garth, we'll go to the next slide if that's okay.
And Jamie, do you want to just get a little glass of water there? Okay.
Sorry, I do sound extremely, thank you.
Just got to look after you, my friend. There you go. Let's move to the next slide.
Okay, so if we can really get an understanding, I will be honest, we have a larger supply. I'm one of 2,200 agents in Perth that do property management. So I'm a very small number. What I am happy to see is that we are having more properties available for rent. So last month, these are my absolutely raw statistics provided by Inspect Real Estate. I'm happy to see 15 houses available, because over the last year, I've only had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 15 properties is great. It's a little bit a sign of the times, because most people had their rent increases in March and we're exactly at that same time. So for 15 properties, this is the scary reality coming to Perth. Number of tenant inquiries for my 15 properties, 1,065. 712 prospect inquiries. We only needed to do 33 inspections for those 15 properties. And if you're wondering why 33, we always do a home open as soon as the property is available, and we have one 2 days later just in case. If we're not happy with the applications that come in from the first home open, we've always got a second. So of those 15 properties, 264 tenants registered to inspect and 148 applications for 15 properties. So what you can see though is also the average rent of properties leased. So I'm a very average portfolio across Perth. I don't have our western suburbs. I have a lot of investor units. So what you can see is that even though that price is showing 450, there is a lag. It's a 3-month lag in our data. And I can already see that our prices are no longer 450 and 430 that you saw on the last screen. They're now 491. already. So the scary thing if you're a tenant coming to Perth is, or if you're anyone looking for a property, is for my 15 properties, you are one of 148 applications. So we do average anywhere from 9 to 18 applications per property. I would definitely suggest that 9 is more your apartments and 18 is more your houses. So again, I'm one small average real estate agency in Perth, but these statistics are pretty much across the board that people are lining up at home opens. We have limited numbers at home opens, so we even have to stage people over an hour, and we're still getting 20, 30, 40 people to a home open. We just have a shortage that's not being filled by investors purchasing or by enough builds, because we are still expecting 22 to 30,000 people between now and the end of the year. Garth, next slide, if that's okay. So obviously looking into a window of Perth, the reason why people love Perth, just to let you know, everyone, is it's never been better to be in the most isolated city in the world. As you can understand, COVID has changed the way we think, and something that people love about Perth is those wide open spaces and the coastline. I think I've said this before, but you can actually get realestate.com insight. So realestate.com put out annually and every 3 months to agents insight as to where people are looking, and people are looking at Perth and they are looking at Brisbane. The reason why people aren't looking at Melbourne and Sydney is they absolutely love Melbourne and Sydney, but they've been priced out of the market. So the average price still in Sydney and Melbourne obviously is that $800,000, $1 million. Perth still remains affordable for migrants to live here. Obviously too, for Perth, we are extremely close to our Asian cities, and we obviously have a very strong mining a job in those sort of things. So in relation to Perth and Brisbane, they still remain extremely affordable, and they also are a hotspot for migrants who are searching for Perth as well, for somewhere in Australia. Okay, Garth, next slide. Okay, so we still have absolutely immense demand for houses within a 20. I'm not saying we have demand everywhere in Perth. You could be a property 55 or 60 Ks. And to tell you the truth, the hottest markets are regional Perth as well. So everywhere there is demand, but houses within a 25K radius of the CBD still remain extremely popular, in the sense that we are probably averaging 40 applications for properties. Interest in metro beachside suburbs. So that past photo was clear. We love our beaches. I will admit that older apartments continue to stagnate, but not when we get our migrants. So I must admit, we have some extremely old apartments that are still available for rent, and we've always struggled to rent them when we lock down, because those old apartments are very popular for students and they've been very popular for migrants. And obviously Perth shut its borders for 2 years. However, whilst older apartments continue to stagnate, we are getting that rental market back as we allow in. Look, pet potential is still key, guys. I know that a lot of people are anti-pets, but we're now a population of 73% pets, and a lot of people come to Perth for quality education. So schools is extremely important. We also have an extreme labour shortage, so we are expecting positive net migration. I know that our state government is trying to cap the number of entries at 1,500 per month. However, we've already had 16,000, as I said, move to Perth in the year to 30th of June, and we now have more than 50,000 people on the migration waitlist for migration just into WA. You will note, however, that our state government will not allow those in, because we're already fighting a homelessness and a housing crisis. So that's it. Garth, I don't know if there's time for questions. I'll leave that up to you. And again, guys, my apologies. I've got COVID, my husband's got COVID, so I'm a sweaty, snotty mess, but nice to have some human contact in my lockdown.
Awesome, Jamie. That was brilliant. Thank you. We got a question come through here from Brian. Hi, Garth and Jamie. As mentioned, the Perth market is an emerging one. What is the government doing to support investor demand? Is the government investor friendly? So, Jamie, you got any comment on that? I've got an answer for that. So I've got an opinion and a view on that.
Look, in relation to our state government, they're heavily focused on homelessness and they're heavily focused on increasing our builds. So they've always absolutely supported stamp duty rebates and those sort of things on new builds. So in relation to our state government, again, a little bit potentially, handled the COVID pandemic very, very well, but still in relation to supporting investors, REWA as an industry body are heavily pushing for them to absolutely push forward in relation to supporting investors. However, they still are focused on supporting investors only in a new build. Garth, I'll let you probably go.
Yeah, thank you. So, Brian, yes, I'm a member of REWA, as Jamie is, and yes, we're trying to find solutions to this rental shortage problem, which is now spilling over into a social problem with the homelessness. So I'm also part of the Property Investor Council of Australia, the advisory board here in Perth, and we've been driving hard to try and get some incentives for investors, because investors are part of the solution. And unfortunately for the uneducated, the investor is seen as a greedy, rich tycoon that has 100 or 200 properties and doesn't care about the tenants, where we know 80% of investors are mum and dad investors, probably on a household joint income of 100 grand a year, just trying to look after their superannuation. So it's a fight we continue to keep fighting. There are bodies, and as I say, the Property Investor Council of Australia, PICA, is a voice for property investors, and we are definitely trying to beat that drum, whether it's from a federal level or state level. So I hope that helps. I hope that answers that a little bit. There's some questions come through on chat. What are the best suburbs to buy for rental return? That's a good question. All right, we will get onto that. Thanks for soldering on, given the presenter. Okay, that's great. All right, I'm going to now just, so Jamie, fantastic. Thank you very much. And I know difficult with your voice and with a bit of a cold there, so thank you very much. I wanted to now move and let's have a look at another angle from regarding the values of properties and some locations, etc. So we're tracking pretty well. We've got 18 minutes to go. What I did want to do is do a case study on a property here. So this in front of you, this screen here is this is a development of 5 townhouses that were built in a suburb called Duncraig. These were built and completed 2 years ago. They overlook a beautiful park. This is on Beach Road, so they're probably about 2 kilometers away from the beach. Duncraig in Perth is 17 kilometers away from the CBD. And I'm going to get you guys to participate in the chat here. So I'm going to give you a bit of a background. So my client bought number 4 here. His name's Matthew. He is a farmer from the farmer here in WA. First investment property, paid. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, double lock-up garage, beautiful boutique development of only 5, literally walking distance to the shops. We've got shopping centre 200 meters away to the left, as you see this, and to the right, we're probably 300 meters away from the Warwick train station. So walking distance to the train, walking distance to the shop, 200 meters away, sorry, 2 kilometers away from the ocean. You paid $656,000 for that 2 years ago. The initial rent was at $520 a week for the first 12 months. And then after the first 12 months, the rent went up to $530. The tenant is literally just moved out now. And I would be interested to know what you guys think the rent might have gone to. So if you're still alive, kicking, in the chat box, would you put what you think the rent went for this property? Literally from 530. So it went from 520 to 530, and now the new tenant has come in. So can I ask a few people there, and if Jamie's there? Okay, we've got an answer of 650. Yeah, so it went from 520 to 530. We got a 600, we got a 620. Anybody else like to participate? Okay, thanks, Leonie. There, we got a 640, we got a 625. Anybody else going to have a go there? Anyone else want to? We got a 5.
I'm not going to, Garth, because I think I know the answer. I should know the answer.
You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to. Okay. We got a 580. All right, that's great, guys. Great contributing. All right, so 520 in that was 2 years ago. A year ago to 530. All right, doesn't look like we've got any other bidders, so I'm going to tell you what happened there. All right, this property has just gone from 530 to a rent of $700 a week. Okay, so, and no one else besides our wonderful property manager, Jamie Horner, is the property manager. So I recommended her to the client 2 years ago. They went 530, 520, then they got 530. The tenant moved out. They were in discussions with the owner, and the owner decided, right, let's start advertising it at $600 a week. All right, so this property was advertised to rent at $600. It eventually rented for, not eventually, it rented for $700 a week. It was vacant for 1 day only, $700 a week. Where's the tenant coming from? Well, the tenant was one of these people coming from interstate for work. So she's come to work, a lady that was renting in Sydney. She was renting at $740 a week. So 700 is what she's used to, no problem. And she works in the construction industry, but she's come for a job here, but in administration. So she works in an office for a builder. So my client phoned me, he is absolutely wrapped. The rent has gone up. I just made a note, just something, let's have a look. I think we worked that out to be 32%. So from one tenancy to the next, the rent went 32%. The property has also gone up $100,000 in value over the last 2 years. And remembering, Perth hasn't even had its run yet. So great property, boutique property in a fantastic area, good for families, and massive rental demand. So Jamie, if you are still there, I don't know if you can hear me. The one thing I wasn't sure about, Jamie, do you know how many applications came in for this property that you rented at $700 a week? Because then if the owner wanted 600 and you got 700, it was some serious outbidding of people.
Yes, so we did. We had more than 18 applications for the property. I must admit, we do not assess all applications. We obviously quickly go through them all and we shortlist the top 4. People do overbid, but we still only select them as a tenant if they are a quality tenant. So we don't take overbidding on a so for example, you can't be a poor tenant and overbid and take the property. We're still finding absolutely quality tenants. And look, that property probably would have gone up in small increments when the tenant was there. And you do find that, Garth. So a lot of our owners won't put the rent up too much during the tenancy being in place, because they obviously are very respectful of the quality tenant that they have in place and keeping it. And so you do find that a change of tenancy does reflect the market. And you're right, the price that she was paying in Sydney, everything's affordable in Perth when you're coming over from the eastern states.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jamie. So good point there, whether it's renting or buying, just remember that the value looks really, really good for these people coming from interstate. Okay. So the Perth property market chart, the Perth residential property market, a couple of things. Right. We've got massive skilled visa migration. You've just heard that. There's 40 to 50,000 people waiting in the queue, waiting to be stamped, depending on how the state government and federal government allocate those visas. But there's a lot of people wanting to move here, and as we heard, nowhere to rent and there's nowhere to buy. All right, sorry, the second one here. All right, foreign students. So we haven't had foreign students back here either. So Perth's got in the region of 5,000 foreign students returning. And again, where are we going to house these people? Where are they going to rent? As you've heard from Jamie, one thing, the foreign people generally and the students, they are the ones that will take some of those inner city apartments, the 1-bedders or the 2-bedders in the city, the ones that have been facing a little bit of the vacancy issues. Number 3, more tourists coming now at open borders, right? Definitely. So just hearing again today, we've got some massive sporting events coming to Perth. I'm a massive rugby union supporter. We've got England coming to play here in July, beginning of July at the Optus Stadium. That will be a full sellout. 10 days before that, we have the State of Origin here being played in Perth, and so on and so on. But generally, our hard borders are now open. What that's going to mean is more tourists. And where there were no tourists before, people that were renting out Airbnb, that had Airbnb, had to put them into the rental pool, the normal 6-month, 12-month rental pool. So those properties now, there will be even less supply of rentals, because now with tourists coming, those properties will be sucked out of the 6 to 12-month rental pool and put back into the Airbnb space. Vacancy rates are at an all-time low. Perth stock levels are very low. Property values are still below the 2015 level. To smart, educated investors, that is a buying signal. That is not something that you sit there and, oh, well, that's a bad thing. That is a very, very good thing, because why? You're buying it at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock on the property clock. So you're going to get the full growth of the property cycle over this next 3 to 4 year growth cycle. Property values anticipated up 30% over the next 33 to 4 years time. So really exciting time. As we can see, rents are jumping big numbers, particularly when the tenant moves out and you get a new tenant in, and we're going to see some big growth over the next 3 to 4 years. What this means with our strong rental yields is that properties in Perth are generally cash flow positive. So if the investors are buying new properties, they don't have to worry about maintenance and repairs because the property is under warranty. They're getting a really strong rental yield, as we saw, 4.3 to 5%. On interest rates of 2.89, even if they go to 3%, so very strong. So they've got positive cash flow, the properties are going up in value, they're going up in rents. Rents are increasing over the next 2 to 3 years, and a great city to be investing at the moment. A lot of really positive factors for this. So I'm just going to try and move that out of my way there so I can see what we're talking about. So I just wanted to use a couple of examples of, okay, so Perth's such a great place to buy. Give us some examples of what type of thing. So I'm going to flick to a map just to show you where this property is. So this property is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It is a house and land package, but importantly, the land is titled and ready to settle. The 3 key cities that we are really driving for investors, where we see the opportunity: Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth. To find titled land in Brisbane, good luck. You're not going to find it. It's going to be 6 to 12 months away. In Adelaide, also titled land, extremely, extremely difficult to get because those markets have been red hot. So in Perth, they are like hen's teeth, but you can find them with the right resources, like we have a property pass, to get the title land. Why is that important? The land can settle now. What it means also is the builder can build at the price they've quoted you. They do not build increased variations, because it was 6 months ago that they did the pricing and they're still waiting for the land to settle. So where is this place, Brabham? Let's have a look. So on a map here of Perth, there's Perth CBD. We can see northeasterly here in Avonlea Private Estate in Brabham. It's 23 k's north of the Perth CBD, on the borders of the beautiful Swan Valley. So this is the Swan Valley with the wineries and the chocolate factories, etc., etc. So beautiful lifestyle here, close to the Perth airport, which is down here. Really, really well located. Let's go back and have a look at the property again. So it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, fully turnkey. So for an investor, you want to complete landscaping, painting, carpets, blinds, everything all set to go, air conditioning, fans. So what can we expect? So house and land in that area, 23 k's out, 565,000. Rents currently at 525 to 550. By the time the house will be built, which is taking 10 to 12 months, you could probably see potentially another 10% or $50 per week increase on that. So a good area, affordable, land titled, great builder. And importantly, why this area, God? Well, we're going to show you quickly here the infrastructure upgrades. So Perth, our state government has spent a fortune on what we call MetroNet, which is they are extending the train lines into areas that originally and previously didn't have. So there is a railway extension which is going out into this area. So at the moment, this area does not have the service. It's serviced by buses and by freeways and roadways here, but not by the railway system. But in the Metronet, we can see here that there's this link, it's Metronet. It's been extended from the Bayswater, goes through Morley. And I'm just going to show you here now. So what this is doing is for this area that didn't have that infrastructure of train, literally that will be there in the course of within 12 months, that train station and train line will be up and operating. We can see at the moment it's very high usage of vehicles because there's a lot of people living in Brabham and in Ellenbrook, and they just haven't had this train system. While it's coming in now, you can see it's one of the major growth areas for population, and we can see here it's going to be a 50% reduction in public transport traveling time. So a massive incentive to people to buy there because the train lines are going to be going in there. Sorry, I just jumped one too far here. Let me just go back. Basically, this is the train line. So this is where Brabham would be. There's the Perth CBD. Currently, the train line runs up to Bayswater, which is about here, and runs off to Midland. So that is an existing train line. What they're doing, this extension, they've been working on it, and it'll be operational within 12 months, is it goes from here, it goes up to Noranda, it goes up to Malaga, which is a very big employment hub, and a lot of industries, manufacturing, wholesale, a very high employing area here in Malaga. And then it goes up here to Whiteman Park. So this is a big park here. It has wildlife. It's a national park, so it will never be built out. And this is where the estate is next door. So basically a bus, well serviced by bus to the train station and into the city of Perth, and going all the way up to Ellenbrook. So yeah, there's been a massive population growth up in this area strategically, and now will be serviced within the next 12 months. And what they say is basically property prices go up with this infrastructure. One, when it's first announced, and number two, when it's actually there, visible and happening. So in about 12 months again, when these train lines start operating, again, we expect to see another surge in property values that are serviced in and around these train stations at Ellenbrook, around Whiteman Park here and Brabham, around Malaga, around Noranda, and around Morley. So we're strategically looking at these areas where new infrastructure is going on and where demand will be really strong. There's another property here, again, is what can we get bang for buck in Perth? So Garth's talking about Eglinton and Perth. Well, where is that? Let's have a look at the next slide down. So this is Perth. It's in our northern suburbs. I'm sitting here tonight talking to you from next door to Joondalup in Currambine. So this is about half the distance on the way up here, all the way up to Yanchep, which is our sort of northern reaches of the Perth metro. All right. So it's on the northern side of Perth, very, very close to the ocean. And we're going to just go back. I want to show you what we've got here. So here, it's a $626,000 property, house and land, massive big 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, cinema room. It is a house and land. Any house around 4-bed, around about 180 square meter for investment is good. As you can see, this is an extra 25 square meters bigger. So absolutely stunning, and would be very, very easy to rent because it's going to be perfect for a family that wants some size and wants some space. Full turnkey, so it comes in full with all the landscaping, air conditioning, etc. Rents today, $600 to $625. Again, when this is completed in 12 months, you can add another 10% there, so another $60 a week to $70 a week. Again, why is this a real standout? The land is titled. The bill price is fixed. There's not going to be any price variation because we're waiting on the land to register. And again, title land in Perth in the right suburbs, very, very difficult. Huge infrastructure again coming to this particular area. We're getting a freeway extension going straight past here. We've got a Yanchep rail extension coming in here. And it's an area of choice. You heard Jamie talking about people moving to what she called sort of regional places of Perth. Well, people will live in this area for that very reason, that it's close enough to the city, so they can get to the city. I think it is in 48 minutes on the train, because the train line is coming up here now. The train line currently finishes at Butler, and it will be up there by also within 12 months, all the way up to Yanchep. So the next 12 months, the train line will be to Yanchep. Also the freeway extension, where you see it stopping here at the moment, this will be there within the next in the next 24 months. So there's talk of it being there by next year, but I think it'll take maybe another year just because of labor shortages, etc. So why again this area? and I'm mindful of time, so I'll talk quickly. Look at this fantastic, really, really close. These are beautiful beaches here. So we're about just 1.9 kilometers to the beach. Again, we're close to schools. We heard all those things Jamie was saying. People want to rent close to schools, they're close to shops, they're close to the ocean, they're close to sports fields. The train station is literally right across the road for them. The freeway will come past, so access of getting into the city are fantastic. Right, so as we can see here too, I'm just going to move that out of my way. We can see there that we have Butler, which is then going to Alkimos, which is then going to Eglinton. So it has its own train station. Catch a bus. The bus will be 500 meters away from the train station. The freeway will also have easy access there, and it goes all the way up to Yanchep. So it's an area we have identified, again, in a year's time when the train's there, and in 2 years' time when the freeway goes all the way to Yanchep. Again, there will be another run on capital growth because of that infrastructure that's in place. Running through again, why the Perth property market. Skilled visa migration, huge, 40,000 people on the waiting list. Students, foreign students, another 5,000 students coming back into the Perth market for renting. More tourists, okay, with the Airbnb properties now going to be sucked out of the rental market. Vacancy rates at all-time low. Perth stock levels, very low. Perth property values still below 2015, buying signal, huge. Comparatively, relative to the eastern states, very affordable. Affordable for renting, affordable for buying. Anticipating values to go up 30% the next 3 to 4 years. So it's in a growth cycle, strong growth cycle. Strong rents, cash flow positive properties. Rents increasing for the next 2 to 3 years as well, and a great city to be investing at the moment. So I'm mindful of time. I just wanted to see if we've got any questions. So if there are any questions, I basically come to the end of my presentation. So Jamie, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself. I'm just going to have a look here and see if we've got any questions. How many years in a buying cycle from, we've got a question here, how many years in the buying cycle from 6 to 12 years? So, sorry, 6 to 12 o'clock. So 6 to 12 o'clock is normally happens in a 3 to 4 year period, Damien. So what generally happens is property goes to sleep for 8 or 9 years, and then it has a major growth cycle of 3 to 4 years. We know that, so a lot of investors, including myself, had bought in the Brisbane property market, and it had done nothing for 10 years, zero. So we're sitting there thinking, oh, we bought a lemon, this place is wounded Brisbane, it's never ever going to go up, what's going on? And then you can see what it's just done in the last sort of 3 years. It's just massive, 29% growth in 1 year. So yes, the growth happens over that 3 to 4 year period, but knowing when that actual time of the peak is and the bottom, the actual time for 6 o'clock and actual time for 12 o'clock will be retrospective. You'll have to look back and say, when did it actually hit perfectly 6 o'clock or 12 o'clock? But those are the trends. Just wondering if I'm a first-time buyer, can I invest in property rent without any obligations? So Mukesh has asked the question, if I'm a first-time buyer, can I invest in property and rent it out without obligation? So again, without knowing your specific details, you are able to buy. And so firstly, you could buy an investment property as an investment property, and you don't lose your first home buyer's grant. All right. If the full intention to rent it out is for investment, and you completely isolate your first home buyer's grant, you do not use it, you do not ever lose, you will not lose your first home buyer's grant by buying an investment property first. The second answer to that is a lot of people do what's called rent invest. So they buy their first home using their first home owner's grant. By law, they have to live in it for 6 months in that first 12-month period. So in your first 6 months or the second 6 months of the first year. And then you are allowed to rent that out for as long as you want and not be penalized and lose your first homeowner's grant. But again, just get some specific advice from your broker and maybe your accountant so that just getting your dates correct and you don't get yourself in a bit of a tangle there. Jamie, I'm just having a look. I don't know if you can see question, how long is it taking to build houses in Perth at the moment? So again, depending on builder to builder. So one of the main builders that we use here in Perth are confidently building in a 10 to 12 month period. And the reason that is they have their own factories, so they have more control over the timber, the tiles, the bricks, the cement. But there are other builders that are building over 24 months. So it's important, again, to align yourself with a great team that know who the right people to be working with. Another question from Neil. Hi, guys. While we're letting all know, Perth is favorably seen in national sporting terms with the selection of the State of Origin 2, end of June, followed thereafter by the Wallabies Test match. Thank you. That's correct. Are interest rates likely to impact a potential 30% growth over the next 3 to 4 years? Jamie, you want to have a go at that one?
Oh, sure. Okay. So are interest rates likely to impact the potential? No. Look, I do. Obviously, it'll impact a person's return. However, it's definitely not going to impact the potential growth over the next 3 to 4 years. We just have too much demand for not enough supply.
And there's a question here for you. Last question, guys. So thank you for hanging in. I know we're a couple of minutes over. Last question for Jamie. Jamie mentioned regional Perth is going hot too. Are these areas in the country or dependent on specific criteria, e.g., town population?
So what we're seeing,
maybe talk about what areas you're specifically meaning.
So you'll see that vacancy rates are extremely low. So obviously Perth being at 0 is horrendous. I'll be honest. It's not a nice, look, investors may look at it and say it's absolutely great on rental return, but even at a 2% vacancy rate, you get a great rental price increase in return. It's more the fact that regional areas, for example, our main other cities such as Karratha, Albany, Bunbury, Mandurah, they're even lower than 0.7%. So what you've got is that you've got people that have also decided that I want my more regional life. So you've got those owners in Perth that are going, okay, time to downsize, but I'm going to go to Margaret River. I'm going to go to one of those coastal areas, or even, Karratha, because it's booming back again. So they have even lower vacancy rates of about 0.3%. And another issue, obviously, is supply for them. A lot of people do not invest in regional towns. And a lot of them sold, obviously, in 2015 to 2018. So their supply is even worse, and their demand has doubled.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, guys, we're going to wind it up there. I think there was some really good information. There was some great questions added in there, so thank you. I will be sending out a recording tonight of this webinar. So please, if there was anything you didn't quite pick up, we'll be sending that out for you to have a look at. And also, please share with anyone you think may appreciate it. And I will be trying to phone each of you over the next day or two, just to say hello, touch base, see if you've got any questions, see if you've got any concerns, and let's see if we can help you. If you do have a property currently in WA, in Perth, and you wanted to get a second opinion on property management, as you know, I highly recommend you have a chat to Jamie. Have a chat to her, work out are you happy? If you're happy with your property or you're not happy, see how she compares. I'm not suggesting that, I'm not encouraging you to walk away from your current property manager, but it's also good to often get a second opinion on rents, on vacancies, and the same thing, and highly encourage you to go back to your finance broker, have a chat to your finance broker, and stay on top of your finances. Interest rates didn't do anything for 18 months. You could have been asleep for 18 months. That's fine. Now you have to pay attention. Rates are moving. The property market now is moving back to, it goes back to its normal rules now, which is, you've got to be on your game. You've got to be using experts to buy in the right area for the growth, for the rent, and have the right property management. So we hope you've enjoyed it tonight. It was wonderful having Jamie. So thank you, Jamie. As always, a really full of information and delivered beautifully. So thank you. And thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate you giving up your time for us tonight. So thank you. And that's us signing off. Garth Davis, Property Powerhouse. Cheers.